Hello, dear friends, lovely audiences. Welcome to the East West Show. Jack Chow on the East West with G and E TV. The moment you see me, we all alive because we do not have a war yet. And yet the World War subject been on the lips of us Americans for quite some time. And worldwide, you're still talking about an atmosphere where the tension gets tightened about the North Peninsula, Korean Peninsula situation. Well, we do know the Korean Peninsula problem has been there ever since history. Only recently, with the launching after launching of the missiles, we really get to that point. So people call about a war. Even President Donald Trump has warned, and he seems to be down to his last resort. Let's see if there is a war. Let's see if we can take care of the war, how we want to do it. If not, how we want to do it, either way. Today with me is my good friend, Mr. Thomas Johnston. He is everybody. He is everything. He is a veteran. He is an attorney. He is a intelligence officer, and he knows everything about wars, I believe. So welcome, Thomas, to the show.
Thanks for that introduction,
All
Jack.
right.
I'm looking forward to talking to you about this, but I certainly don't know everything about
Well,
war, but I'm
more than I do.
very interested in this topic, that's for sure.
Okay, to your knowledge, because you've been in and out of war for yourself, right? So you know what a war exactly like. To people, war spells only 3 letters. It's easy. But once I believe you happen to be on a war battle, on a battlefront, to hear the thunder, like that kind, you will know what war do mean. People die. People do die in wars, war times. Do you think, I'll put it this way, how likely do you think we Americans can launch the war? Of military attack, put it that way.
War's our last option, and I think that there's 2 futures when we talk about what's going to happen on the Korean Peninsula.
Mm-hmm.
There is a situation where we launch the first attack, and another situation where North Korea launches the first attack. Mm-hmm. And I think that they both have separate consequences.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we have to put ourselves in North Korea's shoes for a minute and think about what their strategic goals are. Strategic goals are big goals, operational goals, smaller, and then tactical are even smaller. Strategically, they want to sit at a negotiation table with the United States with the power of being able to strike the mainland, the United States mainland, with a nuclear weapon.
Yeah.
And so they say, hey, we will sit down and negotiate with you once we have the ability to strike you with an intercontinental ballistic missile that's going to deliver a nuclear warhead.
But not right now.
They will not. So it's a zero-sum game. So we cannot allow North Korea to gain the technology to strike us. I don't think that we should have allowed North Korea to get as far as it has in its nuclear weapons. But there's no way that we can allow that to happen, because once North Korea has that technology that can strike us, then we're at an impasse with them. And they are not a rational actor that way. For example, the Russians have had the ability to strike us for decades. They haven't. Chinese, they have not. Okay, we have rational state actors that are not going to destroy each other.
All right.
Okay. But with the North Korean regime is so backwards and it's fragile that regime will do whatever it can to protect itself, self-preservation.
They don't play by the rules.
No,
sure.
they could strike in a way that the known rational actors, Russia, China, and others, would never do. And that is a risk that we cannot take. North Korea cannot gain the technology to be able to strike us here.
In other words, the first our risk, we have to realize that it is not a situation that we can wait until they think the moment is ready. We have to apprehend the situation. Am I
Yes,
right?
you're exactly right, and I think that we cannot wait. The time is coming where there has to be some action to keep North Korea from being able to strike us. We cannot let that happen. And I think that if military option is the only option, then that's where it's going to go.
Exactly. Right now, Donald Trump has warned Kim for several times, the fat guy. See?
Yeah.
Warning, warning, last warning, last warning. And then goes another one. Another one, like that. Right? The guy just wouldn't listen. So now, if we keep on doing the warning thing, we're just crying wolves. We're losing face. We're losing lots of credit on that. So, do you think it is time we did something?
Well, let me say this. I don't agree with the president in most things, but North Korea is not his fault. Okay, North Korea is North Korea's fault.
It's accumulated, yes.
Yes, it's North Korea's fault. It's not any president's fault. But what's happening under his watch is it's a decisive moment where, there has to be a decision made, and North Korea cannot gain the technology to be able to hit us.
Yeah, you're right, you're right. Regardless whose fault that was, right, that has been. For example, the North Korean issue had been accumulation even since the Bush time. I mean, Bush 41, right? All the way, one by one, for 4 presidencies already, it's accumulated there. We would have that taken care of a long time ago. Now, regardless whose fault that is, but in Donald Trump's hand, this is happening.
Yes.
It happens at his time, then it's his problem, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
As a nation, we need to take a breath.
Yes,
okay?
we really need to do that, yeah.
Because it's so politically charged right now, and this rises above politics. This is about our nation and in an international setting. And we could go back even farther. I mean, we could go back to the 50s to talk about the Korean Peninsula and how things have gotten to where they are.
Yeah.
And it's
Only that China was involved, right?
well, right. And
On this one, I don't think China was involved.
Well,
Getting involved.
here's what is interesting about that is I heard George W. Bush, President Bush, give a talk about 2 months ago. And
HW or W?
W.
W, okay.
43.
Okay.
And he was here in LA, and I had a chance to go listen to him speak. He wasn't speaking to me. It was a group of people, but very
okay.
interesting at the Pacific Council. And the difficulty that Korea was posing back then is, what is China's involvement? Now, China had when they fought us in the Korean War, we fought to an impasse, and I think that is a source of the national fabric. So I don't think that China is going to sit by and watch whatever happens there. I think that is something that they need to consider. As a matter of fact, China and Russia this month were conducting exercises together. And I saw that in some internet reporting. So it's a very, very complicated. Now, China came out earlier this year and said that if North Korea attacks, it will not defend North Korea.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But it would be, the tougher question is what happens if the U.S. attacks first.
Yeah. And China's position right now, of course, time has changed, right? Whatever U.S. and China did during the First Korean War, that's a different situation. And we did come to an impasse anyway, right? Because there was no war necessary at all. So coming into an impasse was the only right solution that they came, right? Now, looking at right now, what's happening right now, time has changed a lot, totally different. Now back to the very, very bottom, China says this, the position, all right? If you attack China, of course, there's a rebound. You have to bear with the consequences, right? If you attack Korea, North Korea, we will not stop you. And we will not help you attacking, right? So if Korea attacks, fires the first shot, I'm in, like that kind of. So that is good enough to the situation of the triangle. We call it triangle,
Yeah.
right? So do you think that will happen, but to balance it?
I think it's essential to do that. I think that if there is war with North Korea, having it limited to North Korea would be a very important, of course. But yeah, those are some very difficult decisions and consequences that have to be made. But they have to be made. They can't be ignored. They can't be hoping something good is going to happen from this, because it's not going to get any better, Jack. Only
like
worse.
you said in the very beginning, we are preparing ourselves for the worst.
Yes.
And we still work for the best, something like that, right? You're kind of either way protected. Otherwise, we're not only losing face, there might be a danger all of a sudden there goes a missile.
Well, of course. I mean, we can't. We have to act before that happens.
All right.
And so what would that look like? I mean, North Korea has the 4th largest army in the world, okay? And so they have capabilities. Our forces train to confront and defeat other forces that have similar capabilities to our own.
Okay.
So the military trains to defeat forces as strong as what we have. So there's very good people and very smart people preparing for that unfortunate outcome, if that's what it's going to be.
All right. Thank you very much for that analysis. We know for sure that we want to stand tall as America, and we really want to mean what we say, right? So there is only a when question, not even yes or no. We do have to apprehend the situation according to my dear friend, Mr. Thomas Johnston, and who's been a veteran himself, in and out of war, came home intact, a whole piece, right? Being an intelligence officer, well, that's the important part. We'll talk about the part when we come back. And my dear audiences, we'll take a very short moment now. When we come back, we'll find out block by block. Okay, now we'll lay down the first overall picture. Now when we come back, we'll talk about what if we do attack. Right, so stay with us, please. Hello, lovely audiences, my dear friends. Welcome back to the show, Jack Chow on the East West with the G&E TV. Today with me is my good friend, Thomas Johnston, an attorney at law and a veteran of U.S. Navy intelligence officer who's been into Iraq war, in and out. Luckily came home a whole piece, not a scratch, good. Is there a scratch? Oh, mosquito bites probably. Mosquito bite. Mr. Johnston, I would say that he is among the youngest that has the war experiences that he can share with us. Now, to the war aspect, right? Suppose we launch the first shot, fire the first shot, right? There's quite a big talk about how likely we want to apprehend the situation within as short as time as possible. They say 30 minutes, they say 3 hours, like that, because you want to make sure that all the points are checked, right? So from the intelligence point of view, where you kick in, how sure are we about our intelligence? So in other words, if you want to quantify it, by what kind of percent do we know exactly where those missiles are?
Well, let's talk about that for a minute, Jack, because I have no intelligence. I've been out of the service for 6-7 years now. Okay, but if I had that type of information, I certainly couldn't share it because
I understand. Yeah.
Tactics, techniques, all of that remains.
Understand. Yes.
You can't talk about those types of things. Now,
it's a lifetime ban, right?
oh sure, I mean, of course.
Otherwise, you'll violate your whatever.
Yeah, I would assume. Yeah, yes. I mean, you just can't talk about that. But we can have a discussion about, in general terms, if we should, if we went or what we did. But I'm certainly not a spokesperson for the military. I'm just a citizen.
Yeah, let's do for the larger parameter. Okay, in the larger parameter, that once we do start the war, though, we must be assured that where the targets are. In general, things might be that.
I think in broad. Let's just go a little bit broader if we can.
All right.
Our military it's a professional volunteer military, and the people that are involved in the planning and execution of missions of all kinds, whether it's a Coast Guard rescue mission or the commander of a battle space in Iraq or Afghanistan, those professionals have dedicated their lives to proper planning. So what we can, as citizens, can depend upon is having a professional military that has planned and plan some more the best you can to be prepared for any conflict. Now, once the conflict starts, things are so dynamic that they rapidly change. But what's great about our military is that command and control is pushed down to the lowest levels possible. So the leaders of infantry platoon or pilots or a captain on a ship.
Individual platoons, right?
Yes. So they have the ability and the training to make decisions, and that's what makes it such a great military. And it is an unbelievable fighting force that we have. And so even though that North Korea has capabilities, they have a capable military force, ours is the best the world's ever seen.
Very good, very good. I understand your position. I respect what is your professionalism, right? So that's not a question. But we want to just roughly to assure our audiences, including myself, right? Number one, we will never launch a war or a military attack unless we are 100% sure that we have upper hand of the situation, that we know where our enemies are, right? And number two, I'm trying to sum up what you have made in this statement. Number two, that when we plan for an attack, we want to trust the fact that our professional military commanders and personnel are trained to give the humanly possible best plan.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, if you look at, let's just talk about some of our generals, our general officers. These are men and women who could have been the chairman of General Motors or Ford Motors. They're that smart.
Okay, easy.
There was a General Lynch in Iraq who had command of the 3rd Infantry Division, who we worked for. He had a master's degree in robotics from MIT.
Am I right?
So those are the type of brilliant, dedicated people we have in those positions.
Oh, I never know that General Lin had the master degree with the robotic designing.
Yes, it's fantastic, isn't it? I know. So
that's, all right.
Those are the kind of people we attract and train in our military. And
I see.
That's why we have to encourage young men and women to get involved in the military, because that's who they can expect to be led by and become.
All right, so much for the offense part. For the defense, though, if, say, North Korea fired the first shot, so we know we have the thought with South Korea. So are we capable? Suppose if they launch something over there, flying over the Hawaii or U.S. Guam or whatsoever, and to hit the continental U.S., right? Are we capable, without having to expose any of our secrecies, so are we able of interfering the midway?
Our military has robust capabilities, and it's. I don't have any intelligence, any information about this conflict at all, Jack. But just looking at what you can read in the newspapers is we have robust capabilities to defend our allies and defend ourselves. So.
In other words, we have no problem to intervene halfway when they fire their first shot.
So well, I think that there's plans. I mean, of course, there's plans for that. What happens if North Korea attacks Guam? Okay.
Guam. Okay.
So let's just say North Korea attacks Guam.
Or Hawaii.
Okay. So we talk about our missile defense plans. I don't know what the capabilities are. Okay, I don't. So that is one line of defense. But if North Korea were to attack Guam or Hawaii, that's certainly starting a war.
The U.S. worry did not come from nowhere. For example, New York. You were talking about the air defense, open air defense in New York, supposed to be sealed like a drum, right? And how come we would have three of the jet flyers coming in and hit the tower, right? Obviously, there are holes somewhere somehow. Are we still talking the same thing? You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, of course.
I'm talking about September 11th,
yeah.
Right? Okay. Now, so how come they can still fly in to attack us? So, in other words, here we're talking, there could be something, for a moment, something flies over and bomb us.
I think that Jack, you're touching what's a reality in combat. We can plan, but once the war starts, it's so dynamic that things change, and that's why we have the capability to respond to what's happening. The U.S. isn't producing battle robots. They're training humans to make decisions in a changing atmosphere so they can respond to it.
Okay.
So we're not creating some technical barrier to attack. What I think we do, and what we do very well, is we train the human being to be a leader, thoughtful, and trust his or her training to make decisions in difficult environments, and then support them with the best technology and equipment and logistical support they have, so that those people have the training and the ability to change in a very dynamic situation. That's what's so great about our military. Now, war's terrible, but I mean it's
So
bad.
You just mentioned about that. We probably want to stay, want to put ourselves in the shoes of Kim Jong-un, right? So, did he or does he never know how strong Americans are? How strong our military is? Why would he try to bomb his head into a dead wall?
Well, I was thinking of, trying to put myself in, or just trying to reverse roles to find out what's this guy thinking about? How is he rational? And what I've been thinking is that he's most interested in surviving as the head of this regime.
Power.
So the military is the largest employer in North Korea. They have over 1 million people, 700,000 in reserve. Okay, so the military, I think, is his key to keeping his power. South Korea is a threat. The United States is a threat. He can't touch us right now. So he can't, if he can't harm us, he does not have any negotiating strength.
Mm-hmm.
So if he wants concessions or if he wants food aid because they're starving or they want these sanctions lifted, I think what he thinks is his only way to do that is to be able to sit down with the United States in a position of strength saying, I now have the ability to harm you for the first time. Because before the threats have been, I have the ability to harm your ally. I can reach South Korea, I can reach Japan.
Good,
But for what I think he wants is the ability.
Thank you for that analysis.
I think that's what
and I believe that you hit a very important point, that who you're dealing with is a mad guy, right? Is a mad guy. Is an unrational mad guy, and is kind of like ready to commit suicide kind of guy, right? All right, my dear audience, today with my dear friend, Mr. Thomas Johnston, we are touching the Northern Korea Peninsula situation. And we had two segments of analysis to find out that Kim Jong-un is a special kind of enemy that we're dealing with. How special? When we come back, we will continue to find out. So, excuses for a short break. We'll be right back, please. Hello, my dear friends, my lovely audiences. Welcome back to the show, Jack Chow on the East West. Today, our subject is Northern Korean Peninsula, that situation, the war versus war when U.S. is involved. And of course, there are lots of other countries, such as China, such as Japan, such as Russia, and South Korea. All are around the problematic northern part of the peninsula. With me is my good friend, Thomas Johnston, a lawyer, attorney at law. Oh, by the way, he is a trial lawyer, right? A trial lawyer. Trial lawyer means that they fight till the very end, and then for the final tit for tat, right? Lose or win, that is the moment. Okay?
That's right, Jack.
Right, good. Okay. Oh, yeah. A trial attorney. And he's been on the Iraq War. He's been in and out of the Iraq War. Luckily, he had his job done with lots of glory on his shoulder, on his chest, and, well, not a scratch. One of the lucky guys. So, I would say that you just mentioned, touched a very important point by judging the nature of our enemy, right? So that reminds me of something in China. In old China, there's a kind of like you know the term called the beggar gangs? The gang, you know, you have the gang, right?
Yes.
Gang, the beggar gangs.
Yes.
Okay. I probably have 50, 40 behind me. And then I go door to door, those the front stores, door front, and ask for money. Okay. You have to give money. Otherwise, well, you will not, you will suffer. You know what they do? They have a razor, like the shaving razor.
Yeah.
They cut his own head open. Right? Especially when you are selling silk, especially white silk, right? And then here goes your money or my blood, like that. So most of the shop owners would say, hey, please do not do anything. Okay, here's the money. And then they say, okay, thank you, they go, like that. This guy, the fat guy, Kim Jong-un, must be that kind. Do you think I give a vivid description?
Yeah, that is you don't want to be the shop owner in that position.
So we're now the shop owner. China is the shop owner. Russia is the shop owner. And Japan is the shop owner. Even South Korea is a shop owner. He is kind of holding a razor. He's doing this because he needs food. Am I right?
Well, yes. I think it's an apt analogy to what's going on there. Mm-hmm. But what I think you're tapping to is it's a problem we all share. This isn't this is directly an American problem, but it's also a Chinese problem.
Yes.
And it's a Russia problem.
You're right.
It's a Japanese problem. It's a problem to everyone because
it's a humanitarian problem.
Well, how about this, Jack? I mean, let's say that what would ever stop someone like Kim Jong-un from selling nuclear weapons to other countries?
Could be.
I mean, what would happen if he sold them to terrorists? Or what if, he would not keep that technology to himself in any way. He would sell it to anybody he wanted.
Could be the case. Well, he's crazy enough, he'll probably do that. So.
And desperate enough. So I think nuclear proliferation is the biggest danger we face. We have to keep that from happening. And it's really a tough spot that we're in.
Altogether, do you think it is a smarter way to capitulate with the situation? Everybody bend a little bit. You want food? We know you're crazy, okay. We're not saying you're crazy. Everybody knows you're crazy, but you're hungry, right? Here goes the food. Right. Here goes the water. Here goes the oil. Something, okay. For that, do you think that will put him down a little bit? Because it looks to me he's kind of like an archer, right? Will say, hey, I'm going to shoot, right? Give me food, like that.
Yes.
And luckily, he has not launched yet, right? So we said, okay, put it down. Here goes the food. Can we do that?
Well, let's say we've been doing that, Jack, it seems to me, for 15, 20 years, maybe longer, where we would give him, take North Korea off the terrorist watch list and give them some concessions.
Yeah.
But what's happening while we're doing this is his capabilities are increasing, and he's getting to the point where he could have the ability to strike us here. And we can't wait that long. So whatever is happening with him, if he's showing strength to get to a negotiating table, the time's ticking so fast on his technical capabilities that it's a whole new problem, because I do not think we can wait until he can strike the homeland. I don't think we can wait that long.
I see.
It's a real problem, Jack, and I'm not.
I know what you mean. Yeah. Got him into the habit of asking more and more and more, and in the process of asking, they never stop preparing themselves for the nuclear readiness.
That's exactly right.
Right? And then to a point, we get even more threatened, even more severely threatened, and we have to give more. Something like that goes on and on. And then that one does not reject the fact that he started selling his nuclear weapons.
Right.
To everybody else.
It's not going to get any better, Jack. It's never going to get any better.
In the international military, does that include sabotage?
Can you say more about that?
Sabotage.
Yeah.
We send some special agents to North Korea to sabotage, either by assassination or by whatsoever, created some domestic problems to overturn the guy.
I really don't know how to answer that question, Jack.
That sounds the only way out.
Well, I really don't know how to answer that question.
Right.
I don't. I'm sorry.
I don't know either.
I don't. It's a tough.
I don't know either.
I think what you're saying, though, is there's got to be a way to solve this without all-out war.
Yeah.
And Jack, I wish there were, but do you really think that? Because I'm starting to get the feeling. I'm starting to feel inside that this is the war. The war drums are beating, and there might not be another way out of this besides an armed conflict with North Korea. That's how I'm starting to feel. How are you feeling about it?
I get the day-to-day tension. And the other day I was having a Starbucks with a friend of mine around the courtyard on the open area, right? And we were talking about that, and one of my friends said, you know what? This very, very moment while we're talking, there could be a missile flying over us. Could be. You can never prevent from happening again, because what happened in New York, what September 11 proved that could happen.
People are talking like they were in the 80s, when we thought that the Cold War was at its height. And we talked about when I was a kid, You know, what would happen if the nuclear war started?
The Cold War, the Cold War period of time, yes.
And, you know, I have 3 kids now, and they shouldn't have to grow up with that, wondering if North Korea is going to strike them and wipe them out. I mean, we got to think about that.
After all, there has to be something done. Has to be something, either from inside or from outside, I believe.
I
Do
agree.
you think so?
Yes, this has to end. This threat has to end, either diplomatically.
What if we
or
do not declare a traditional war? We just militarily attack those targets to eliminate their survival of their nuclear facilities.
You bring up a great point.
Yeah.
We have not declared war since World War II, so Congress has not made a formal declaration of war since then. But we know that there have been a war since then. There was the Korean War, there was Vietnam, there was Afghanistan, there was Iraq, and I said Vietnam, right? So none of those was the result of Congress passing a war resolution, declaring war.
I see the point, yeah.
So
but Iraq War was, right? Iraq War was.
The Iraq War, no, Congress did not declare war against Iraq. Now, they gave the president authority to do the invasion, but as far as a formal declaration of war from Congress, that hasn't been done since World War II.
I see.
And a lot of people talk about, especially members of Congress, they say, hey, the war power is up to us. So while the president's the commander-in-chief, we get to make the decision whether or not we go to war. But in modern times, really, the commander-in-chief, the president, has broad powers, and which I think are appropriate to be able to lead our forces into combat. And so I would imagine that the presidential power versus congressional power will stay how it is, where the president, as commander-in-chief, gets to make those calls.
Back in 2003, when President Bush was ready to launch Iraq War, though, there was some lie involved, some fake story involved, right? But right now, you don't have to fake a story. There's a story everywhere, almost every day, at the North Korean situation, right?
Right.
So, in other words, they have, even the Congress or president, they all have enough evidence to either declare war or to give the power to the president. You, as a commander-in-chief, you decide what to do, like that kind.
Well, you go back to 2003, we went to war to get rid of weapons of mass destruction that didn't exist. Now, with Korea, we know that they exist and they flaunt them.
Yes.
So what are we going to do about that?
Yes, that's it. We give the president the power, and it is up to the president, the supreme commander-in-chief, right?
Yes.
To decide what to do. And then you're talking about Donald Trump versus Kim Jong-un. So,
yes.
Could be, well, what I tried to indicate was that, what if we make some mistake? We attack those military target, and when we say next day, we say, we're sorry, that was a mistake.
Well, that won't ever happen. But if you put out President Trump and Kim Jong-un here, and they make the political decisions, it's the people underneath that are executing the instructions, the orders from the president on the American side that's going to win that war, because they are capable, they're well trained, they have great equipment, they're motivated and brilliant. It's our armed forces from the top to the bottom that would win that war.
Winning a war is not a problem, right?
Well,
but how long and in which way? Casualties.
It's going to be terrible.
Consequences,
So,
especially nuclear consequences.
If this war, keeping it from being nuclear is critical. But they have, according to reporting, just from reading the paper, is there's big concern about the conventional capabilities of North Korea and their ability to harm South Korea. There's no doubt there's no doubt it's a terrible war.
Okay.
But we have to think about, okay, what's the alternative? Because if we do nothing, what happens?
Yeah, you're right.
If we do nothing, what happens? Well, I'll
Yes,
tell you what
yeah.
happens. He's going to have ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, that can have multiple nuclear warheads put on the tip, and they could hit multiple targets in the United States.
They can land on continental U.S. territory.
Right. So that is unacceptable.
That's unacceptable. That's so devastating that we would have to blame our president. Why didn't you do something early? Right. Okay. Now, dear friends, my lovely audience, with my friend Thomas Johnston, we're having some good time discussing about the Korean Peninsula situation. Should there be a war? Should there be a war? Not be a war? It looks that either way, we're facing a very, very hard time for a hard decision. Let's take a short moment now. When we come back, we'll find out that except to waging a war, not wage a war, and to negotiate or not negotiate, is there anything else we can do? Stay with us. Stay with us, please. Hello, lovely friends, my dear audience. Welcome back to the discussion about Kim Jong-un and North Korean Peninsula, that situation. With everything taken into consideration, and in between war and not war, military attack or not an attack, and any other options, we've touched almost every bit of it. So I'm so bothered. There are issues we the people can always get involved. For example, if I want to elect Thomas Johnston, Assemblyman of California, at least I can vote, right? I can vote. I can voice out like that. But this thing, the average Americans can do nothing. We can do nothing.
Well, the idea is this, Jack. The idea is that when you voted for someone, you put that person in office to make these decisions. And that's how our government works. So we put people in office to make difficult decisions. And that's where we have. Now, the members of Congress that we elect, one of their powers is the power to declare war. Although it seems to me in modern politics, that's not really what happens.
Have not been exercised yet.
Right, because presidential power seems to take care of our modern conflicts since World War II.
Okay.
But we elect a president to become commander-in-chief. And what you hope people do is in the equation of who is going to be elected, they elect someone that the people trust to be a good commander-in-chief that has good decision-making. So even though we can't vote on a war, we've put someone in power, by our vote, who's going to make those decisions.
Act on our behalf.
Right, so it's still democracy in action. Now, the North Koreans, they don't have that option. You know, they have an absolute dictatorship.
They have Kim Jong-un, the only one man, okay.
But the comparison between North Korea and the United States shows the beauty of democracy and the power of the vote and what people get to do when the people can control their own government. As opposed to being in a dictatorship hoping for a handout.
That's exactly the issue. If it had happened to somebody else, anybody else, we, the people, will feel a little better. But with Donald Trump, a character known to have no certain pattern, sometimes, quote unquote, he plays with a deck and a half, right? So the public worry, the trepidation becomes even more intense. What if out of temper, out of bad mood or whatsoever, he made it the wrong decision to drag into the country into a war which could, as a matter of fact, be prevented?
Let me say this about that, okay? I do not support President Trump's policies on almost everything, okay? But I trust that the president and those people around him will help him make the right decision. It won't be rash. It won't be because he's personally harmed. I trust the military and the commander-in-chief to make wise decisions when it comes to North Korea. And I'm able to set aside my partisanship, okay?
Okay.
And say, hey, this
is
a different issue. This is about.
It is a moment to set aside the partisanship because you see,
because Americans are going to fight, and every time we go to war, Americans fight and die and get hurt, and families are ruined.
Yeah.
And so this is not political. It can't be. Or
exactly.
You know, we need to rise above that. And for this issue.
In other words, even though Donald Trump supposed to be known as a character of no certain format, right, there are still presidential advisory group, right, and their military commanding group that they will provide him the best elements needed for a consideration of decision, and so on and so forth.
Yes, so the Secretary of Defense.
The Secretary of Defense. Even the Secretary of Defense himself has a think tank around, right? So the think tanks together will not be same amount of foolishness. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. I think that what would happen is something like this. Event occurs. President calls the Security Council, National Security Council.
Okay.
What are my options? So it's those professionals that would give options. Now, the president, as commander-in-chief, would have the ability to say, I don't like those options. I want to do this. But I think most likely what happens in those scenarios is the Secretary of Defense and the National Security Council put their talent and attention to options. And then the commander-in-chief gets to pick the option. And then the people that have it carry out that order. So even though the president has the authority to do whatever he wants.
Yeah. But he has a veto power, does he?
Oh, sure. He can tell the Secretary of Defense as Commander-in-Chief to fulfill any lawful order. And it goes down the chain of command. He's at the very tip of the chain of command. And so long as it's a lawful order, the officers and people below him have to follow that order. But I think that practically there's collaboration, and even though the commander-in-chief is the ultimate decision maker on what package or option to use, the things that are put in front of him are important too.
In other words, his veto power, which will be used at the very end, though, very, very end of the chain of legal command, right? He would most likely have to listen to the advisory group, the chief of commanders, and National Security Advisory Group stuff all together to form a concept, to form an idea, right?
Yes.
And based upon that, he makes a decision.
I think so. And I think that this, as a commander-in-chief, what we've seen over the last year is he has repeatedly said, I'm listening to my generals. What my generals are saying will dictate troop levels in Afghanistan. So I think that that's a good sign that the commander-in-chief is listening to the generals. So if when it comes to the decision-making in a conflict with North Korea, that the professionals who have the most information and experience will put different options in front of the president to make a good decision. Do you think
at that kind of level things or discussions or proposal would be non-partisanship?
I think so. I trust Americans to be Americans, okay? This president's very different in how he approaches partisanship.
I agree, yes, I agree. Yeah.
Like he thinks that, is someone who didn't vote for him, he sure spends a lot of time making half the country that didn't vote for him, or a little more than half the country that didn't vote for him, put that group down. And I think that's very partisanship, very partisan. But I think that when it comes to decisions
on this
like
one,
I don't think it'll be partisan. I don't think so.
Nobody dares to, right?
I don't think so.
Because it's so critical. It relates to the whole nation.
We come together as one.
Once we get in, yes.
In reality, too, and not just in a concept that we come together. I think when America goes to war, we go as one. We don't go as
of course.
two groups.
No partisanship. Well, singly goes to the reason of whatsoever.
That's exactly right.
Very good. All right. And luckily, we have a system that will work that probably could put the trepidation away, even though we have a unpredictable character for a president like President Donald Trump. Oh, by the way, I didn't vote for him. But I still support him as a president of the United States. By Constitution, I have to do that. But the thing is that I appreciate the fact that my friend Thomas Johnston analyzed that anyway, it is not a single-handed resolution, right? It has to be a joint council of all the advisor groups, all the think tanks together. At least they can give the president like the three options, something like that, right? And all the three are lawful, legal, lawful, and the president could choose among the three. Am I right?
Yes.
Very good. And lastly, there's lots of worry about our security as a nation. Should there be all of a sudden another airplane flying in, such as LA, such as what Christmas coming? So you think we're safe, right?
I don't think we'll ever be safe. I think that we need to be constantly ready for a terrorist attack.
Yeah.
If we've moved on to terror, I think we have to always be vigilant. We should never be complacent. We should never be safe. I mean, because we are never safe. There are determined groups of terrorists who have capabilities of their own, who are thinking of ways to attack us every single day.
Be vigilant.
We have to be vigilant, and we can never say, okay, it's over now, everything's okay. Take down the metal detectors, or that's never going to happen, because if that did, we would get hit again.
All right, okay. All right, good. We have to be vigilant constantly, and this discussion wraps right now. We appreciate the audiences for watching, and I do appreciate my dear friend Thomas Johnston, an attorney at law, Iraq veteran and intelligence officer of U.S. Navy. Here's everything. Thank you for your statement, and thank you for your confidence of U.S. structure. All right, good.